The first thing we want to consider is the surface itself. The most ideal surface for fingerprints is something that's smooth and non-porous. And that's what we got here. We have plexiglass. We're going to coat the brush with powder. For white powder, it's titanium dioxide with some sort of wetting agents. After we apply powder to it, we want to spin off the excess powder. It's always better to add powder than it is to remove powder. We're just going to move it back and forth on the surface. And then once I see a fingerprint develop, look at the way the ridge detail is going and follow that pattern. Is it a whirl? Is it a loop? Is it an arch? Now take your brush and follow that circle. And that's to develop the print a little more. So we're done with dusting, let's go on to lifting. You'll notice this is very clear. If we open it up, we should be able to see right through it. So we want to do it in one steady, swift motion, like so. I'm going to start my tape outside of where that print is. So I'll start it over here. The next thing I want to do is create an anchor point. I do that by moving my finger up and down. And then what I want to do is smooth my finger across the finger. When I'm done, we have a fingerprint. So the next step now is to take this lift and put it onto an acetate. What we want to do is put our acetate on a clean surface. So the same way that I lifted it, I want to put it down. And then once it's there, I'm going to rub back and forth to make sure I get out any sort of air bubbles that may be there.
Oh yeah, there's a big one in here.
And there we go. If we have a surface that isn't smooth, that has a texture to it, or is curved, it's more difficult. In these situations, we'd want to use a product called microsil or any sort of casting type of silicone component. In this case, we have a light-colored surface, so we'll use a black powder. It's a carbon agent and wetting agent also. So we have our powder, and we have two brushes. Okay, we'll take a look at it with the light, and we see that there's a really nice fingerprint right there. So lightly apply some powder to it, and now if you see a pattern there, follow that arch.
Should we get some more powder for the golf ball?
Yes. Try just to move just the tips of the brush and move it back and forth. So the next step now is to prepare our microsil and apply it to our surface. So this is microsil. It's a casting component we use to recover fingerprints or impressions from difficult surfaces. So I'll do one from one side of the card to the other. And now I'm going to draw a line just below it in the hardener. And you'll see it's going to come out thinner. But as long as it's the same length, that's all that matters to me. Mix the blue into the white. And I'm just going to scoop up some of this microsil. And we're just going to spread it over, just like you would spackle a hole. So let's take a look at what we got. The big reveal.
Whoa.
Look at that. We want to secure it so that fingerprint doesn't get destroyed. So we'll put it into a small box. We'll send this to the lab. They'll take examination quality photographs of it. Let's say it rained the night before.
Okay.
So fingerprints are comprised mostly of water. The remaining percentage of fingerprints are minerals, salts, amino acids, and lipids. So if it rained, that 98% of the fingerprint is gone. But what remains could be the fatty part of the fingerprint. So it's a suspended solution of molybdenum disulfide that will react with the fats in your fingerprint. And we'll completely coat this in it. You could see that reaction between the two. And when we want to stop that reaction, we want to clean it with some water. So just spray, spray, spray. So it's good for surfaces that are wet. It also works really well on greasy surfaces. The same technique we used before to lift it, you're going to do the same thing. Just notice that it's going to be a little more difficult. We draw a diagram of the bottle and like circle or draw an arrow to where we got the print. We're going to create some bloody fingerprints on our drywall, and we're going to use a chemical to process it to enhance the detail that could be there. Okay, so keep going across. Keep going. Let's do another one. Do a little bit below that. Let's do another one. So you would think like the bloodier ones are your better ones, but it's usually the lighter ones that are going to give us more detail. All right, so now we're going to apply leucocrystal violet to our surface. So we'll cover these areas with filter paper. We can lift this up and see how it developed.
It's so much more clear.
So if you could see, before we didn't see a lot of detail in some of these, it started to bring out detail. And so even on some of these lighter ones, it developed it pretty good. So we would first photograph it as is, and then what we could do is just cut the surface out and send it to the lab, because there's other steps that they could do at the lab that we can't do in the field. So that's how you lift fingerprints.